Jungle. Jungle.
The student exhibition from architecture students at Lancang Kuning University, Pekanbaru. So the main event is the exhibition of the student studio. Hari ini saya akan menjadi moderator acara Takshow bersama Kevin Maklau dari Malaysia, from the small projects in Malaysia. Nama saya Parlindungan dan sudah hadir my friend from Malaysia, Kevin Maklau. Hello Kevin, how are you?
Hi.
Long time no see, eh?
Very long.
Very long. If I'm not mistaken, I saw your presentation in Pekanbaru. The title is, do you remember the title? Did you remember?
Many years ago.
Interdependence and individuality, I think.
Oh, was it Pekanbaru?
Yes, about the seashell and the sea.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you presenting about the deepness of the sea, and it related to the architecture.
I think you will find this one more interesting now.
Yeah. What have you been working on lately? Teaching or designing?
Both.
Both.
Before the lockdown, I just completed a very big project in another country.
Oh, in another country.
Yeah, 50-story building, and also completed a small chapel in Kalimantan. No, not Kalimantan. Sorry, in Sarawak, near the border of Kalimantan.
Yes.
And a few other things. And then during the lockdown, I had 3 new commissions and a lot of teaching, a lot of online teaching. So it's been really good. Yeah. And also renovating my house. I moved into a new house last year before the lockdown, and now I'm renovating my old house. So it's really a very good, busy time for me. I'm very lucky.
Alhamdulillah. I still don't have time to come to your house yet. And now it's renovating.
Yeah, now it's not possible until the airlines start flying again. But I think it's going to last for a lot longer. You know, we're still very optimistic that we're going to be able to fly very soon. I don't think it'll happen before for at least 1 more year, if not maybe longer.
Maybe 2000.
People are even anticipating 2025.
2022 maybe, right? 2025?
No, 2025.
Oh my God.
Because you see, no one has really asked the question. The whole world business is really not affected.
Yes.
The cargo is still traveling, but people realize they do not need to travel.
Yes.
It is not essential towards survival, you see.
Yes.
So this is the reason why the airlines are suffering so much. It's because they are not really needed. Travel is a luxury, not a necessity. Yeah.
Sure. So in this afternoon, we will see a presentation by Kevin. So the title is the individual and society. So I want to ask you first: is this the presentation related to architecture?
Absolutely, but it's more related to the built environment, and it's related to people, and not so much the architect, unfortunately. But I'll be talking about the architect specifically because this is a big problem we're experiencing in the world today, where the young have so much more exposure by the internet to events and community and the idea of what society really means. But unfortunately, we as architects, we're not behaving with greater responsibility. Yeah? And so this talk is about specifically 2 projects that are actually miserable failures, even though the people who started them and who designed them are still pretending like they are big successes when they are miserable failures. Also, many things in Bandung are being looked at as being very positive, But the only thing that is increased in Bandung is the viral tourism, and it's destroying the communities that live around these projects. So this is a very important issue to talk about. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You have 30 minutes. Okay, before you start the presentation, I wrote your writing about the Juhara, Ahmad Juhara. Yeah, we are all set about Ahmad Juhara to in here in Indonesia, and also you maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, you have 30 minutes, Kevin?
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Oh, 30.
30.
I prepared the presentation for 50 minutes.
Oh, okay. That's good. Okay.
Okay. I hope people will not mind.
No.
But I can stop. I can stop early if you want, and we can have this discussion. Yeah.
Okay. After that, we can start the section about the question.
Yeah. Tell me, should I share screen and start?
Yep.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, let me get a full screen. Okay, let me just start here. The title of today's talk is Individual and Society, and it's an important one because no other time in history has there been a greater sense of change, in a very big way. The average young architect or student has more access to information than at this age, at the age of maybe 21, than anyone than I did, even at the age of 36. The information explosion has changed everything. And so with social media, the social networks, there's a lot of, every day there are 5 posts by architects, whether they're famous or whether they're not famous, because these posts about networking, it's about bringing more image and exposure to what you do. But there's a big problem now because we have not really asked a question about what our real position to society is as individuals. We do not ask this important question because we are so busy trying to play catch up to technology. And so I want to talk about this issue because it is very relevant to what we are as architects and how we actually behave in a more professional manner. Yeah. So let me move to the first slide. Oops, how do I? Oh. The first, I'd like to first start with a description of a very early project that many of you may know. It's in Versailles in France, 1682. It was started by a French king. His name was King Louis XIV. He was also called the Sun King, and he used the design help of the great French landscape architect and urban planner André Lenotre to design Versailles. Yeah, this is in 1682. It is also what brought on the French Revolution, where the French people said, we do not respect the king anymore. Just because you got special blood, royal blood, it doesn't make you special. And then they beheaded Marie Antoinette, and the French Revolution happened, and everything in Europe, in fact, everything around the world changed. Yeah. But anyway, this is Versailles. There's a palace right on top of the highest point, inside the Hall of Glass, the Hall of Mirrors, and looking down that amazing axis past the Fountain of Apollo to the amazing lake beyond. Yeah. Just to give you an idea, this is King Louis XIV. I was not able to find a photograph of André Lenotre, but I will keep on looking. The view behind is the entrance to Versailles. It is a huge space. And just to give you an idea of how big this space is, I want to show you a map of Versailles itself. These are the gardens on the central part, and the city of Versailles is on the right-hand side. Now, the city did not happen after which the gardens were put. No, the city was built because of the gardens, yeah? At first, there was only a small hunting lodge here, and then it became the palace. And then as the palace grew bigger, more and more people, servants, needed to serve it. So the city of Versailles grew up as a result of needing to serve the palace. And then after that, it became tourism. So the whole city developed because of tourism. Now I'm going to zoom into this area here in the orange. just to give you an idea of size and scale. You see the people, maybe I should go back just so that you can see, yeah? This is a fraction of the palace itself. And what you see like ants are actually people queuing up to go inside the main entrance. This is where you buy your tickets. This is the new ticketing office, which they attach like a funnel. After you buy your ticket, then you are allowed to go in. Now, just to give you an idea of how big this is, if you were to walk in at the main gate here, and if you were able to walk all the way to the first courtyard, the welcome courtyard that the king was dropped off at, it will take you no less than 7 to 8 minutes walking at normal speed. 7 or 8 minutes just to walk from the front gate to here. Yeah, this is how big it is. Now, on a good day, this is what it looks like, the line. And of course, some people are looking towards you, other people, your backs are turned because the line is snaking all the way down. Yeah, 4 minute walk down and 4 minute walk up, 4 minute walk down, 4 minute walk up back again to the entrance. Yeah, so this is a good day. On a bad day, there are 40,000 people waiting to go in, and the line is 3.5 to 4 hours before you can go inside. Yeah, but you do not have to queue up. If you want to visit Versailles, you don't have to go to the palace. You can walk for the side door and you can visit the gardens. The gardens are completely free. Anyone can walk inside and there's no line. So I've been to Versailles many times and all I've ever bothered to visit are the gardens. But these are the gardens. There's an amazing lake that was man-made. It is almost 1.5 kilometers from one point to the next. Yeah, and the landscape, the cross arms go out this way. It will take you almost 3 hours or 4 hours to walk around the entire lake to come back to the same point you started. It is an incredible piece of landscape. And if you're looking down from the past the temple, the fountain of Apollo, from the first of the garden, it almost seems like a scene out of a Christopher Nolan movie. You remember Inception, where the whole landscape is falling on your face? This is remarkable because it's not because the landscape behind is actually tilting on you, but André Lenotre tilted the garden in front so steeply, it makes it look as though the landscape behind is falling back. It's actually a trick, but it's not actually happening. Yeah, but to do this in the 1600s was beyond belief. It was one of the biggest. It was the biggest landscaping project in the world at the time, infrastructural actually, because to contain all that water takes a huge amount of energy and effort, yeah? And to shape the land like this and to grow the trees so that you know what it's going to look like 400 years later is a feat that's still unparalleled today, yeah? And inside the Hall of Mirrors, this is what it looks like. Now, King Louis XIV, he wanted to build Versailles to honor the French people. He wanted to do it to make French people proud of being French, to better society, to make France a country to be respected. So you must ask yourself, who was he talking about when he said that he wanted to honor the people? Did he want to honor the people who was building it? Did he want to honor the aristocrats who were worshipping him and living in the many rooms in the palace? Was he honoring the aristocrats? Was he honoring all of these people who are here now, tourists, taking photographs of themselves, taking photographs of other people in the Hall of Mirrors? Well, it's been almost 500 years, 400 years since Versailles was built, and we are still scratching our heads, asking the question, who was King Louis XIV trying to honor? You see, back then, we had royal empowerment. And royal empowerment is predicated on the simple fact that if you have special blood, if your father was the king and you are born a prince or a princess, you have your father's blood. And because of your blood, you are empowered. You are special. You can do anything you want. You can honor the people. But the French Revolution was supposed to change all that. The French Revolution said, I do not care if you've got special blood. We are all the same. And so the French Revolution kicked out royal blood. They kicked out the monarchy, the aristocracy. They stopped having kings and queens. They chopped off Marie Antoinette's head. And instead, what happened was they gave the rise of the bourgeoisie. And the bourgeois, the middle class, actually nothing really changed. They only wanted to behave like the kings themselves. So what happened is royal empowerment got replaced by another kind of empowerment. And the kind of empowerment that started back in the 1700s is something we're still living through now. It's something that, it's something that people like Elon Musk deal with. Now, this is not an advertisement, even though it looks like an advertisement. It is actually a very serious journalist article written for the Times, out of the United States. And the title reads, Elon Musk, what drives the billionaire who wants to save the planet? He wants to save the planet. In public, he is one of the world's greatest innovators. In private, Elon Musk is a 46-year-old looking for love and still coming to terms with his brutal childhood. Now, what love he's looking for and what that brutal childhood is, we don't really know. But you see, he follows him for 9 months. 9 months is the amount of time it takes for a baby to be born. And of course, you see some children here. None of these children belong to him, of course. They're just actors. But this is the age we're living in now, where people like Elon Musk, very entitled businessmen, the richest people on earth, Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, they are what form the economic empowerment. You don't have to have special blood in your body, but as long as your father or your mother had a lot of money, you are empowered. So now blood is out, now we have money. So money has made you powerful, Never mind whether what you're saying is true or whether what you're saying are lies. In fact, Elon Musk builds expensive electric cars, which are very bad for the environment. He builds space rockets that only the richest people can go to outer space on, and it's not accessible to most people. He doesn't solve hunger. He doesn't solve suffering. He doesn't deal with social politics. He merely deals with economics, of the most expensive kind. So the question is, we have royal empowerment and we have economic empowerment. But something new has happened now. Blood is out. Money is also out. Just because you're rich doesn't make you special. We already know this. And yet we still worship people like Elon Musk. But now something even more dangerous has happened. And I'm going to show you an example of Ai Weiwei. He's a very famous Chinese artist. And in 2000, he curated a very famous exhibition, which was an alternative to the Shanghai Biennale that year in 2000. He called it the uncooperative attitude. The Chinese characters here say uncooperative attitude because it was an alternative to the Shanghai Biennale created for the alternative artists who were not invited to participate in the Shanghai Biennale. So they had their own exhibition. And of course, Ai Weiwei translated it to fuck off. And he had his own exhibition, even though he was curating it. And this was arguably his most important exhibition for himself. He put his middle finger up at all the famous icons in the world. A White House, middle finger, fuck off. Eiffel Tower, fuck off. St. Mark's Cathedral in Venice, fuck off. The Forbidden City in China, far away and close up, fuck off. Brunelleschi Chapel in Rome, well, fuck you too. And Hong Kong and the Mona Lisa. And what Ai Weiwei was saying, I don't care how old or how special you are as a tourist attraction, you are not good for the country because only the rich people are making money from tourism. So you are iconic, but because you're iconic, you're also damaging the country by the people living around the monuments. And so you are bad, and so fuck off. He did something very, very interesting there. And he also said that creativity is the power to act. That if you are able to do something, you are creative. We are now living through what I call creative empowerment. Blood, no longer important. Money, you can have all the money. If you don't have a heart or you don't have creativity or nothing. But we have creative empowerment. As long as you are acting to do something you think is good, as long as you're creative, you're passionate, it is forgiven. But we fail to realize that it doesn't matter whether it's royal, economic, or creative empowerment. all of them share the single parent. The dark parent is called entitlement. And we are now living through an era of creative entitlement. And I want to start describing what creative entitlement to you is with the first project. It's a Makoko floating school, Lagos, from 2013 to 2016. It was begun by a man, by the principal of a school in Lagos, in Nigeria, someone called Noah Shimede. And the architect is this man, Kunle Adeyemi. And I need to show you the photographs because later we'll have a discussion that a lot of times we only see photographs when people of architects, when they're very famous and they're good or seem to be very good. We never see photographs of architecture, which is bad. But anyway, Adeyemi built this floating school and it was awarded a silver bear prize by Alejandro Aravena during the Venice Biennale in 2013. And they built a replica in Venice to float it in the lagoon. Yeah. Now, what is Lagos? Lagos is this town that looks to be floating. It's built on the water. It's lived in by squatters and very poor people because they don't have money to live on land. Land is too expensive. So they built a house in the lagoon in shallow water, and this is what Lagos looks like in Nigeria. Now, what Adeyemi said was, Noya Shemede, the principal, said, our school is too small now. We need to expand and to make it bigger. And so Kunle Adeyemi had this brilliant idea. Since you want to build it bigger, and you want to make a statement, we make the school iconic. We build it and we float it and we make it bigger and we move it away from the village. So he had photographs taken by Ewan Ban, a very famous architecture photographer, showing people chopping wood. This is not for the school. This is just what they do for a living. And then children dancing on top of a floating platform to show what the school is going to be like. And of course, you've got canoes bringing children back and forth to the school. Now, what is the diagram he did? He had students and teachers, 100, with knowledge in the middle, going inside a triangle, exchange to knowledge to benefit a community of 100,000. Okay? But the diagram does not explain where the triangle comes from. And actually, it's two triangles. One smaller triangle and one bigger triangle. Where is this triangle coming from? Let's look at another diagram that he did. This is from Kunle Adeyemi's company. Yeah? He has local Makoko technology plus global flotation technology equals derived solution. So now we understand. This is where the triangle comes from. Yeah? One triangle above, one triangle below. Triangle below is for the flotation. Now, can anyone tell me what is wrong with this diagram? If you look carefully at the photographs I showed you earlier, yeah? Can you see what is wrong with this? I won't wait for your answer. I'll just tell you, yeah? Firstly, if you look at the roofs here, all the roofs here are almost flat. All the roofs here are almost flat. The only roof which is sticking up is the floating school. So this is where this comes from. So actually, local Makoko technology does not look like this. This is rubbish. Local Makoko technology actually looks like this. And local Makoko technology does not have that. All of these columns go into the sand. It means that Lagos is not floating. It is built on stilts. But they use the word floating to market the idea better. Yeah, it's not a floating village. It's a stilted village. So actually the diagram should be local Makoko technology removed. We cut the top and we paste the global flotation technology to come up with a contrived solution. It is not derived. This solution does not belong anywhere in Makoko. The floating is not Makoko. The roof and the shape is not Makoko. There is no local Makoko technology, okay? It's only cut and paste of global. What is global, yeah? And so you have a section that the company also did, showing the air flowing through and the classroom above, leaving the space below for playground and green area, except that the green cannot grow underneath a slab of a classroom. So this green is not correct. and the natural ventilation is very limited because there's not so much opening on the other side. And the roof is very, very big. This is very important to understand how big the roof is. We will have a discussion about why what happened with this roof that's being so big, yes? So the project was completed, and of course, to make it very special looking, you float it out in the lagoon, separate from all the village, and then you park a lot of boats around to have a celebration. You get the famous photographer from the world, from Europe, to take photographs for you. And then you have to make lights, so you make very special lights, and then you start to go to social media, and you show conflicting images or images that make it look futuristic, as though it's a science fiction movie. You show yourself with students and showing how it's very successful in Venice. You get a very, very famous publication. This is The Guardian from England, to publish about your project. To publish about your project, and take a look at the title, Inside Mokoko, Danger and Ingenuity. Ingenuity meaning brilliance in the world's biggest floating slum. Never mind the fact it's not even floating. Yeah, it's tilted, yes? And then you photograph yourself with the most famous architects in the world, Rem Koolhaas, and you show there's order in chaos, you show that you are very good, and then you put yourself with other famous architects, Bjarke Ingels, Kunle Adeyemi, and so on, to make yourself become very, very networked. And the final photograph taken by Ewan Baan, the famous architectural photographer, showing your special project, iconic, in the middle of the village. But it's not in the middle, it's on the side. And 2 weeks later, after you receive the award for the Silver Bear in the Venice Biennale, your building collapses. Now, why did this building collapse? Can any one of you tell me? If you remember the earlier photograph, it is built high, and when something like that is built high, it behaves like a sail of a boat. So you understand now why the whole village have roofs which are flat. During the big storms and the monsoons, when the wind blows, the wind is kept above the roof. That's why the roof does not stick up. When you make a roof stick up, the roof will catch the wind, and especially if you have a roof, it will behave like a sail of a boat. Except that the boat is round at the bottom and it can rock and it will be okay. But this is not a boat, it is flat. So of course the whole thing collapses. This is what happens when you as an architect, you want to honor the people, you want to honor students, and you want to give them a school, but you do not care about the actual community. The reason why all of them are very close together is because when you've got many in strong numbers and you put them close together, they have a strength, and the roof is flat. So all of them, even though one would collapse if the wind blows, when you put all of them together, they are very strong. When you make one very special and you move it away from everyone else because you want the photograph, you want the icon, you want to win the architectural prize, you want to become famous and to send your project through the network, it will collapse and you do not serve anyone except your own reputation. Yeah? Another project I'd like to talk about is the High Line in New York, 1991. Now, the Makoko project has completely failed, and yet most discussion is not even directed at this architecturally. Most architects do not even know this project has failed because the truth is always hidden. There's another project now, the High Line in New York, designed by American architects. It has not collapsed, so it has not catastrophically failed. But this project is a horrible failure, but it is still being branded as a success by the architects, by the developer, and by all of the other architects who surround them, who only serve rich people. Now, what is the High Line about? The High Line was an area in New York, in Chelsea, which was part of the meat packing industry. And the meat packing industry was incredibly busy back in the 1930s, 20s. They were mixing horses with carriages and cars and trains. And during a very, very bad time between 12th Street to 14th Street, there were so many accidents. At least 6 to 8 people died every day that they called that stretch of the road Death Avenue. So the High Line project started as an elevated railway to lift up the trains 1 story higher so that there will be fewer accidents and fewer deaths. So they started building this elevated railway system. And when it was finally completed, it was the biggest infrastructural project in the world at the time. And it was finally completed. It was amazing. It added to the skyline of New York. It came out from the 35 street yards, went all the way around the side, past the post office, down between buildings. It went into buildings, came out of buildings, ran the whole length of West Manhattan, all the way down to the St. John's Landing terminal, also elevated. And the wonderful thing is, it was so convenient to use, even commuters were using it. It was not only used for meat, it was also used for people, for public transport. And over the years, as the meat packing industry moved out of Manhattan, it slowly began to fall into disrepair. And it grew burnt grass and then, and just to give you an idea of what Chelsea is like, this is Chelsea, around which the meat packing industry was, that the High Line was within. You had wonderful record stores, a gasoline alley where you could change your car tire or get a new oil change, wash your car, motorcycle. You had bars and clubs. You had record stores and shoe repair, key making. You had barber shops. You had mom and pop shops, delicatessens. You could buy a lunch, cheap pasta and pizza. You had florists and gift stores and gift card stores. And most importantly, you had affordable housing. Oops, how do I go back?
What's wrong?
I can't go back.
Okay.
Okay, I can now.
Okay.
Most importantly, you had affordable housing. This is what Chelsea looked like back when the elevated railway was beginning to fall into disrepair. So now this area is the area of Chelsea, yes? And back in the 30s, when they finished the elevated railway, it ran all the way from the 35 street yards all the way down to St. John's Landing. And back then, it was almost 2 miles. Sorry. After the meatpacking industry moved out, they cut it back to Gansevoort Street right here. And that length is about just over 1 mile, about 1.6 kilometers. And what the two people who were new residents in Chelsea, they just moved into the neighborhood. The first one is Joshua David. He's a part-time Hollywood actor, and another individual by the name of Robert Hammond. He was a Princeton graduate, just graduated, moved into Chelsea because he liked the beautiful diversity and the wonderful sense of life that was already there. And they started a Facebook page that was called Friends of the High Line to stop the demolition of the High Line, even though the elevated railway, even though there was no real plan to demolish it yet. They wanted to create a park there. And so they started the project, they got approval, they got the help of the architects, Dilla Scofidio Renfro from New York, and the landscape architect, Jim Corner of Field Operations. And they were the ones who did the design for this project. Yeah. What exactly was that project? That project began at the 35th Street trade yards, and to revamp this entire length of the railway, elevated railway that had fallen into disuse, all the way into Gansevoort Street. And the idea was to maintain the steel structure below, and then to pour a new concrete base into which they'll plant trees and create a garden. So this is a section that basically shows what it looks like all the way down the length of Chelsea. So they tore up all of that. They removed all of the stuff that was there, and they started putting in the new design. And this is what it looks like today. Bushes on either side. Of course, it's not deep enough for big trees yet. Lookout points, and the floor separating like fingers to allow the green to grow through. And I don't know about you, if any one of you have been there, but just from these photographs, you can see that it is very much the same all the way through. From one side, some parts go up, some parts go down. but it's very much just a boardwalk with plants on either side. Yeah. Now, I want to show you photographs that were taken of the elevated railway before the High Line project was built. These were taken before the project was started. Okay, and you just look at it while I scroll. This was in the end of summer on an early morning, looking towards the 35th train yards on the right-hand side, the Hudson River in front. This is as you're turning the corner. The Grand Post Office is on the left-hand side with all the plants growing around you. This is after you turn the corner, looking all the way down south, all the way down towards St. John's Landing. This is past that point. St. John's Landing is behind. That's going all the way to the Grand Post Office and the yards on the left-hand side. Other views, the railway tracks sliding between the burnt rushes that turn green during sub-spring and they turn brown at the end of summer and into autumn. Some of them are like fields with poppies and wild daisies. Yeah. And everywhere you found wildflowers growing between the railway tracks with burnt grass. Spring morning, signal box with all the wildflowers growing in between. Early morning on an autumn day, and a lot of brush, wild brush. Some parts of it, you didn't even know you were in New York. Yeah, it was a very unique ecosystem that had a lot of biodiversity with squirrels and birds and insects and plant life that had evolved over 50 years. And there was all the detail, whether there were small plants growing by station terminals, or whether they were the switches to switch the lines. Everywhere you had the burnt grass surrounding the rusting train tracks, and the detail that every detail you'd expect to find of nature. Whether it was in fall, winter, spring, or summer, you had the changing seasons happening on the elevated railway, and this wonderful sense of a wonderful slice of nature in the middle of the most cosmopolitan urban city in the world. You see, the High Line was already a park before the project came along. It was a unique slice of nature in the most urbanized city in the world, and it was already a refuge to many people. I don't know if you remember the photograph I showed you earlier. Oh yeah, the trees, some of trees fell, branches, but that's what happens in nature anyway. I don't even remember this slide earlier from in winter when the snow fell. Do you see all these footprints there? These footprints of people who are already using the High Line as a means of pedestrian access because they didn't want to walk on the street. The High Line was very much used by the people of Chelsea even before there was a park there. The community already knew the places they could walk up and climb over fences to get up there. They had barbecues and they were smoking pot, and they had wonderful gatherings and parties up on the High Line. And the project tore all of that up. All of that beauty was ripped up to put in the designer's vision of beauty. So nature is wonderful. We must have nature as long as it's nature of our choice, not natural nature. Natural nature is not design nature. All the way from the 35th station yards all the way down to Gansford Street is the same monotonous boulevard that carries the same kind of people. Whether it's sun shining or whether it's raining, whether it's sun shining or whether it's raining, you have the same monotonous, same old. They kept some railway tracks, well, they took them out and they put them back in, and they planted some of their own nature around it with people. You can't walk into that. Almost like a graveyard, because graveyard is where you put flowers to show a part of something that's already dead, because the people who started the project killed it. And everywhere you go, you'll find places where people can sit to look at other people. Yes, walking by. Some trees, of course, you can read newspapers and all that, but it doesn't matter because all these people are looking at the same kind of people. Do you know what all of these people have in common? They're all the same in a way. They're all tourists. They're all tourists because the local people do not want to go there anymore. This High Line receives more than 3,600 visitors every day. And it's so disgusting with all kinds of people from all over the world that the local people of Chelsea, actually the community, and even the local people in Manhattan do not want to even go here anymore. It's disgusting. And you know they're all tourists because this space is empty until after 10:30 in the morning because tourists do not wake up early. They only wake up after 10:30, after which it becomes very crowded with tourists. But let's leave the top of the High Line for a while. Let's go down to the neighborhood of Chelsea. Do you remember this neighborhood? I was trying to show you earlier. Well, back then they had graffiti, and the graffiti of Chelsea was amazing. In fact, Chelsea was the birthing place of graffiti. You had photorealism, you know, Leonard Nimoy, Muhammad Ali, you had Einstein, and you had amazing color by graffiti artists who actually gave birth to the idea of graffiti. Yeah. Well, most of that now is gone. It's gone and replaced by designer graffiti. And this is what designer graffiti looks like. Famous graffiti artists from different parts of the world to put their version of graffiti on the buildings. So graffiti is good, nice, as long as it's our choice of graffiti, designer graffiti. And do you remember all that amazing diversity of affordable food, affordable record stores, affordable local... Sorry. Yeah, you're asking a question?
Sorry.
Oh, no?
No.
Do you remember all these amazing clubs and bars and the florists and the amazing gift shops and affordable food and affordable housing? All that is now gone. It's all gone and replaced by brand names. Brand names like Google and Barney's and Bianca Ingalls and Zaha Hadid and Daniel Libeskind. It's replaced by all these brands because people who can't afford cannot live there anymore. The rents went up by more than 200%. These people could not live here anymore, and so they moved out. So the diversity is gone and replaced by the same old homogenous brands and the same names, whether it's Barney's or Google or famous architects' names. And of course, less architects get to do some signage, and you get to design lookout points, all that do the same thing. And some special details that people trip over all the time because they can't see the same color of the floor coming up. So people trip over that all the time. And even this is cut and pasted from benches that always come up from the ground that someone else has already done. And work continues. This is phase 1. They're doing phase 2 and phase 3 as well. So it's still getting bigger and bigger, the High Line. And perspectives that show you what is happening in phase 3. Now I want to show you an image. Do you remember this image from a long time ago? This was used by Bob Hammond and Joshua David to sell the project, to make sure the project got built. Do you remember this image? All they did was to stick a boardwalk on what was already there. They didn't even do anything to it. But what actually happened was everything got ripped out. So even their marketing perspective was cut and pasted. They cut and paste their boardwalk, which is 10 times bigger than that now, into the existing beautiful landscape. And this is what is crazy about this project. Yeah. And if you look at the Villager, which is a bi-weekly journal, a bi-monthly journal that is done by the people living in New York, you can see how they feel. They feel they've been deceived. I think it should be people's choice. I'd rather give my money to a soup kitchen than to pay for artfully arranged grass. And for the argument, the High Line would only raise property values for those in the district. Mike didn't find it compelling enough. He says the greatest value in my life is not that my property price goes up. There are more important things that I'm concerned about. One is diversity. But this is the craziest thing that even none of them have even acknowledged. When the cost of your property goes up, you, as an owner who lives there, you still hate the property because all the tourists are still coming and bothering you, and all the prices of the food is crazy. So you only benefit as a resident from the increased value when you stop becoming a resident. When you sell the property and you leave, only then do you gain the value of being a resident, which is so twisted. Maybe I don't even need to explain this to you. But if you need explanation, we can discuss this afterwards, yeah? Ai Weiwei, dissident artist, Beijing, 1957 ongoing. He first became famous in 1996, by dropping a priceless Ming vase to show to the government, you do not take care of our antiquity, and if you don't take care of it, I will show you that I will destroy it to show you that I also do not take care of it. So from the beginning, he was using destruction as his calling card for creativity, someone who creates by destroying. Then he did the famous Fuck You, Fuck Off exhibition, which is arguably the most relevant project he did. This is a very good project because he's saying, just because you're an icon, it doesn't mean you benefit everyone. You only benefit a few people. You only benefit the government and the richest people who make money from tourism. But for the people living near there, it's very bad. For the rest of the people who do not even live in the same city, in the country, it's not good. They do not benefit from tourism. Yes? And after that, he did this amazing exhibition for the Kunsthal in Berlin in the Sichuan earthquake. Many people died, many schools collapsed, and he was calling every day to find out from the government who are the names of the people who died. Now, there's so many people who died, the government doesn't even know how many died. Never mind who the names are. But Ai Weiwei was not happy that they did not give him the names. So he created an exhibition in Kunsthal in Berlin, made of school bags, to spell out in Chinese letters the phrase of a grieving mother to say that her daughter had not even lived long enough to understand about life. After that, he created sunflower seeds, handmade. Each one is individual because they're handmade. More than 1 million of these seeds to put in the Tate Modern Gallery so that children could play with it. After 3 days, the whole exhibition was closed because there's so much dust from the clay and the paint that the health authorities declared the exhibition a health risk. So they closed the exhibition. You could not go inside anymore. They moved all of the sunflower seeds in, and they created an area people could walk, but they could not touch anymore. Yeah. And so you could still see the exhibition to represent China. China being completely homogeneous. 1.8 or 1.9 billion people. Everyone is completely the same, but everyone is completely different. Did any one of the people who made this in the village get to see what the work they did was? Not a single one. This was only about Ai Weiwei and about the brand he was building. This is not about the craft because you could not even see the craft. More recently, in 2017, he had a retrospective of his famous breaking destruction vase exhibition in Florida. And he had priceless vintage pots as well that he painted with his color. And an artist from Florida picked up one of Ai Weiwei's vases and dropped it to break it into 1 million pieces. And he said that he was inspired by Ai Weiwei. He said the photographs were like an instruction manual to show me what I should do with this. And he said he did it to protest the gallery. He said the gallery is showcasing foreign artists more than local artists. And this is not fair. So he broke the vase in protest. And Ai Weiwei's response was this: he should be in jail. He should learn not to break other people's property. Never mind, in 1997, Ai Weiwei not only broke other people's property, he broke the property of the people of the culture of China to make a statement about an institution. The same statement this man is making about an institution. But did Ai Weiwei defend him? He did not, because you can break other people's property, but you should not break my property. He also doing a lot of blow-up dolls these days. His interest is in a lot of refugees. So refugees and a big blow-up boat, dead blow-up refugees, living blow-up refugees, living baby blow-up refugees inside, refugee clothing on clothing racks as a display, refugee life vests to surround the columns of the concert house in Berlin. He also took, he's also doing, not refugee, but he's doing many huge projects under his architectural firm called Fake Architect in China, doing ghost cities in Mongolia, where 3,600 people live there only to clean the streets and to maintain the buildings that are totally empty for 5 million people. So Ai Weiwei is also responsible for these kinds of developments, but you don't hear about this. You only see other things he's done, talking about refugees. The famous AP photograph taken of a poor refugee, Syrian refugee, whose name is Alain Kurdi. His dead body was washed up on a Turkish beach. And the photograph was taken of it by an AP photographer to create awareness around the world of what horrors were happening in Syria. So what did Ai Weiwei do? He lay himself down in the same position as Alain Kurdi and had someone take a photograph of him to bring awareness of something that was trying to bring awareness of something else. So that you have to ask yourself the question at this point. Is Ai Weiwei doing his art to bring awareness to the horrors of the human condition? Or is Ai Weiwei using the horrors of the human condition to bring global awareness to his art?
I think the second one.
Ai Weiwei is famous for many, many things. He's also most relevantly famous for his early fuck off exhibition, where he relevantly put up his middle finger at these global icons to say, fuck off. You are only doing things that help the richest people and the government in the country. You're not doing things for normal people. At this point in time, you got to put his own middle finger up at his own face, because he has become the very icon he used to despise. Ai Weiwei once said that creativity is the power to act. Is this still true? I rather think that creativity is the power of relevance. And what is relevant? Relevance is when you look at things in context. If you are doing something for the community, for society, is it for the whole society of Pekanbaru? Or is it for the specific society living around your site? Are you doing it for the whole of Pekanbaru, for the whole of Indonesia, so that you can become a famous Indonesian architect? Or are you doing it specifically for the people living around your site, for the very specific context that is relevant to your project, or that your project should be relevant to? And what is relevance? Power. And what is power in relation to relevance? Power is the service of responsibility ahead of reputation. Architects, whether they're from Africa, whether they're from United States or Europe, whether they're from Japan, China, or Indonesia, or Malaysia, we all only know about reputation. We are too scared to damage our reputation. So everything we do is a photograph that we can show to everyone about how special what we are doing looks. We don't care about responsibility, because responsibility cannot be served if we want power. That power is all that we think creativity is, but it isn't. Power is about responsibility, and it is about relevance. It's not about reputation. You see, we may not each be like King Louis XIV. We may not each We may not each have the abilities like Andra Lenotre, Kunle Adeyemi, Dylan Scofidio. We may not all be able to build garden palaces, but we each have our private Versailles. We each have our little projects that we want to do to show the world how special we are. This is not architecture. This is not creativity, showing the world how special you are. This is about reputation. It's serving your reputation. And that, everyone, is the relationship between the individual and society. When you as an individual understand that creativity is not about power and it's not about reputation, but it is about your responsibility to society. And what is society? Society isn't everyone living in Pekanbaru. It isn't everyone living in New York City. It isn't everyone living in Chelsea. It isn't everyone living in Kuala Lumpur. It is anyone living closest to your project, because they are the ones that suffer the greatest ill effect and suffer the worst problems that your project creates. So that's the relationship between the two. And maybe we can now start having some discussion if you feel you want to. Yes? Let me stop screen sharing.
Thank you, Kevin. A very, very interesting presentation. This is not the new subject for us, especially for the architects. This is the old discussion topics actually. But many architects now, or many we can call them social media practitioner, maybe. Social media practitioner, just like in Mako. Oh, sorry. What is the first project?
Makoko, the Makoko Floating School.
Makoko Floating. So I saw the personal publication has become a top priority these days, right?
Yes.
They didn't adapt to the context.
We are using words to say what our projects do not do.
Yes, they didn't care about the surroundings. Yeah, that's me. But actually, from the second project, is humans form the space, right?
So the community, this immediate community, is what is important when we talk about a project for society or a project for community. It's about the people who live closest to your site.
Okay.
Not people with the same interests in common.
Yes.
Yeah.
Teman-teman ada yang ingin bertanya, boleh silakan bertanya langsung. Boleh pakai bahasa Indonesia, boleh pakai bahasa Inggris. Silakan. Kalau ada kalau butuh bertanya, silakan. Sebelum ada yang bertanya, sebenarnya saya tadi before there is a question, I want to. Sure. I really like the responsibility of the architects, our responsibility to the society, not just your publication personal. I like to discuss about the context.
Okay.
The context. Architect is the person who works with the context. Always work with the context.
When we talk about context, we usually talk about the pokok. Or we talk about the sunset, or the good view, or the mountain.
Yes.
Yeah? Or the river.
Yes.
Or the soil. The soil color is a certain color, so my building is also the same color. Or contrast for the color. You know, our context is totally shallow. It's about form.
Yes.
My eye looks like this, so I'm gonna put makeup like this. But we don't talk about the most important thing about context: people. Yeah.
Yep. Not just only the people, but you like trees. The smell.
Our context is very shallow. Tipis.
Yes. The smell of the places, the people, and the just like you in Chelsea, right? And
yeah.
Okay. Any question from the participants? We still waiting. Okay. Yang ingin bertanya boleh langsung tulis di kolom chat saja. Kalau mau biar agak gampang, boleh kamu pakai Google Translate juga boleh. Silakan. Tadi saya lihat ada Yeni ya, ada Yeni. Saya todong aja deh. Wait. Halo Novi, mau nanya Nov? Silakan Nov. Oke. Sepertinya belum ada nih Mr. Kevin, but I like the statement about the you are iconic or you are damaging. Ini sangat interesting sih sebenarnya. Iconic and damaging. Mr. Kevin mana? Masih ada kan?
What is that? Sorry, did you ask a question?
No, I just I catch your statement in the presentation.
Okay.
Creativity is the power to act relevance, right? Relevant is context and how to responsibility to the society.
And not about reputation. Yes.
Yeah, then not just about the public personal reputation publication. Do you have any statement or advices to the young architects in this Zoom meeting?
It's exactly what I just gave the lecture about. That's the only
that is the advices. Okay.
Advice. That when you think about your project, that you each have your private palaces you want to build, your special projects, your garden palace, the equivalent. And it's important to understand you need to know who you're honoring. If you're only honoring yourself, or you're actually honoring people or communities. It's different if you have a project by a very rich client. You just want to build a bungalow. That's your client. You're not. It's not a community project. But what is wrong is to call a project a community project when it is only about your own honor and your own reputation. Unfortunately, a lot of things are happening in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in Singapore, in you look at the High Line in New York. Even the Western world, even famous architects make this horrible mistake. They are very shallow. They're only thinking about their own reputation, but they call it a project for community, a public park. Don't call something public when it's only for viral tourists. And this is what's happening in Bandung. A lot of public projects are actually just for tourists. Because local people don't want to go there anymore.
Yep. Local people
they're disgusted by it.
Disgusted. They think this is disgusting. There's a question from Wrong Studio. Mr. Kevin, what will you do if you were appointed as the architect in charge of the Highline project?
I would not have done the project. I've turned down many projects before, and I disagree to do a project if I think it's wrong. The Highline should have been left to slowly evolve. It was already a park. It was already a natural park used by the people of Chelsea. And if Bob Hammond and Joshua David had actually paid more attention, they would have enjoyed it a lot more if they had not started this project.
Yeah.
And if Dylan Scofidio and Jim Conn had any sense in their head, when they saw the site, they would have said, we cannot do this project. I've been invited to do hotels in Bali. I've turned down 3 hotels in Bali because Bali doesn't need another dirty, stinking hotel. This is many years ago. So, but I can do that because I work alone. I don't need to worry about taking on projects, but it's a luxury I bought for myself. So you as an architect, you say you have no choice. You have a choice. You can say, I do not want to take the project.
Yeah.
But you cannot say no. You do not know how to say no. So maybe the only one piece of advice I can give you as an architect is learn how to say no. If you do not know how to say no, you are no better than Agent Smith from Matrix.
Oh, Matrix. Yeah, the architects learn to say no. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Is it menjawab, Mr. Rong? Yeah, maybe. Okay, Kevin. I think it's all for today. It's enough for this afternoon.
Okay.
It's already 3 p.m. here, and thank you for the presentation.
No, you're very welcome.
Thank you for the presentation, and I hope with this presentation, the participants, especially the students in this Zoom meeting, can take the good points, all the good points about this presentation. I can resume that the creativity is the power to act relevance to context, and you
if any of the students have more questions later, you can collect the questions and send me an email. I'll reply. Okay? Because some of them may have questions, but maybe takut atau malu atau apa. But later also they can send. Yeah.
Oke. Untuk teman-teman mahasiswa di sini yang ingin bertanya kalau malu atau belum tahu mau nanya apa, boleh dikumpulkan nanti di saya. Nanti kita kirim ke Mr. Kevin lewat email. Begitu katanya. Okay. From before we close this Zoom meeting, semuanya boleh dinyalakan videonya, kita foto bersama dulu. We can take the picture all together to the participants. Okay. Siapa Lam yang mau ini Lam? Halo?
Fatur Pak yang screenshot.
Oh iya, silakan. Nanti dihitung aja ya, 1, 2, 3 ya.
Oke, siap Pak.
Jekinya ada 2.
Kau yang hitung, Fatur. Belum, masih ada yang belum ngidupin.
Di ini aja, klik aja di namanya.
Bang Musni. Karina Permata, Bang Selamat. Oke. Buat teman-teman yang belum menghidupkan kamera bisa hidupkan dulu biar rame.
Teman-teman tadi kata Mr. Kevin tadi kalau memang mau titip pertanyaan boleh nanti titip ke panitia aja, nanti bisa beliau jawab lewat email. Wah, Musni di kantor.
Bang Musni terlihat tampan.
Oke, sudah?
Karina Permata, terus ada Mbak Charlie. Oke, langsung aja Pak ya. Kita ini teman-teman yang lain bisa barengan juga ngidupin. Oke. 1, 2, 3. Lagi. Sekali lagi.
Yang halaman 2.
Yang page 2-nya banyak yang belum ngidupin, jadi beberapa ada yang belum ini.
Foto aja.
Oh, siap. Yang page 2 udah. 1,
ada Mas Febri.
Bentar. Yang page 2 ya. 1, 2, 3.
Page 1 sekali lagi, Lam.
Oke, sekali lagi. Bebas, boleh bebas. Santai, enggak ini.
Oke.
Santai. Enggak apa-apa, enggak usah kayak foto KTP. Siap.
All good?
1, 2, 3. Oke, sip.
Sorry.
Page 2, satu kali lagi ya, page 2.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye. Have a good week.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a long weekend.
Okay, you too.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh semua.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Udah keluar ya?
Iya. Aduh, aku mau ini.
Ntar di apa?
Oke, beda buat Zoom baru.